All right, here we go. Tucker and Jordan B. Peterson predict America's fate.
Ooh.
Man, this is something that you're going to want to tune into, and this leads to... I got a question. Do the people truly have the power in America? So you always hear about power to the people. You know, you always hear about, the people choose the leaders who thus choose, the ruling class. But do we truly have the power in America? What do y'all think?
No.
Oh, you say no.
Do we currently have the power? No. Could we? Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
That's a little convoluted. Now, Tucker and Jordan B. Peterson had two separate answers, surprisingly. So let's take a look at how, Tucker addressed this.
Happen. And I guess I dissent a little bit from the much more optimistic view that you have, both of you, which I really appreciate hearing and I want to believe it, but that in the end, the will of the people matters. The conclusion that I've come to is that it matters less than it should.
Hold up. Wow.
That's real.
So Tucker's like, hey, you two over there. So he's talking to the moderator and about, Jordan B. Peterson. He's like, hey, y'all think the people got the power. But the conclusion I come to is that, they should, and maybe they do, but they don't really have it. They don't really have it. So this gets into our quality sip. And our quality sip is, if you keep people divided, the plutocrats will continue to rule. So now plutocrat is basically people who use their wealth to, maintain authority throughout the land. And so if we're divided, if we're constantly fighting over, the left talking points versus the right talking points, then of course, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? Because if you're distracted on, killing each other, well then, I'm friends with you and I'm friends with you. Y'all go ahead and destroy each other and I'm just going to sit back and I'm at full strength, right? I'm already stronger than you because I have more resources than you. I'm wealthier than you. But now you are weaker because y'all are fighting amongst yourselves and not addressing the true problem that is at hand. And that's why my mom always says this, the disparity between the haves and the have-nots is going to be greater than ever as we venture into the future. And that is not a good thing, which is which is kind of the downfall of capitalism, right? Yeah. Which is why we do have socialist systems in place in our society because, there are, people that get down bad that aren't lazy and just mooching off the government, but they actually need assistance and they find their way back and help contribute to society. But at the same time, socialism kind of bites you in the butt if people aren't holding their weight, right? Because then you're uplifting somebody who is poor that isn't really contributing to society at all. So are they actually really a part of society, which is a deeper, more profound, question that you can venture into. Yeah. But what do y'all think about this before we dive more into Tucker Carlson? If you keep people divided, the plutocrats will continue to rule.
I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, keep the people distracted so I can continue to do what I do in the background. I'm going to pass this policy over here to do this thing, but I'm going to have y'all distracted with the Oscar nominations and keep y'all fighting about gender.
Yeah.
So I'm pass a few policies over here that y'all won't notice that are already in effect. And I'm going to keep y'all, distracted with the entertainment. I think the Roman Empire did that too. When things were happening, like different wars with different nations and stuff like that during the time, they kept the people distracted with entertainment, plays and what they call the Colosseum stuff that was going on.
Like the gladiator fights?
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So keep the people distracted so I can keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. So we fall for it every time. We never learn from history.
Okay, what do you think, Kenya?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like we saw it happen with COVID. Like we were all distracted with COVID and whatever else was going on during that year. And then we all completely missed the whole Taiwan, China thing going on behind the scenes and the superconductors. And that's why there weren't any cars and other issues that happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, when you're distracted, you can't problem solve effectively.
Yeah.
And so since you were distracted, you're out of the know. And because you're out of the know, then even when you're in the know, if there's not enough people to help solve the problem, well then the problem just goes unsolved, or it's not solved in an effective manner to where, there's a viable solution that ends up, presenting itself. So
Yep.
no,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And to like add on what you were saying about the haves and the have-nots and like how it's only going to get greater, I think that's why it's so important to be in a place where you can have the resources for
Yes.
you and your family and close friends, close relatives, and be in a space economically where you can all work together as a community,
No, yeah.
because it's only going to get worse.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
120%.
You do need a strong community now, which is something that as America progressed, that's something that we really lost.
Yeah.
Was this sense of having a strong community and being able to, lift people up and really rear them and raise them in a proper way before they were, quote unquote, out on their own. They were never out on their own. They always had a community that they could go back to, even if they, moved away. And so now it's kind of like, hey, no, we're just releasing you to the wild, get out of my house. Or you take a job, across the country, and it's like, yeah, I'm still connected to my family, but nobody's necessarily really there for me.
Yep.
Nobody's really checking in on me. They
Yeah.
might call me every now and then.
If something happened, you have no one to really talk to or call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, let's get into some more of what Tucker has to say.
And that the people in power really do make the bulk of the decisions. And I say that after spending 35 years in Washington and watching the agenda of both parties and comparing that agenda to the public opinion polling of what people actually want and finding no union set. No union set. Like there's not the same agendas. And we have a democratic system where these people are elected every 2 years in the Congress, every 6 years in the Senate, every 4 years in the White House. And their agenda never changes. And the desires of the American public, by and large, are never met or even addressed. And you sort of, after a while, conclude maybe it doesn't matter what people want. It only matters what the people in power want.
Hold up.
Okay, Tucker.
Oh,
Now, he
God.
just-
Go off.
Yeah, Tucker,
Right?
Tucker
He
just
be
went off
going
there.
in.
So he's basically saying that, hey, like there is an agenda on the left and there's an agenda on the right? But then there's what Americans want and what Americans need. And they present it to, both the left and the right. And the left and the right are like, spit in your face
Yep.
and say, nope, we're just holding these set of values. And the left is like, yep, we're going to hold these set of values, either get on board or don't.
Yep. So,
And since we've been essentially made to believe that they're the only two options by and large, and because they raise the money and they, get into, the homes of more Americans. And so most Americans are like, oh, these are the options, right? If you're not readily keeping up with it on a day-to-day basis and, understand how American politics works, to say like, oh no, like we really don't have to vote for these two parties or the candidates that these two present if we, collectively were like, hey, no, this ain't it. But since they've, raised the most marketing dollars, they
Vote for who you see a lot.
Yep,
Yeah.
that they're going to continue to stay in power.
Yep.
And that's why when we're divided, we can't understand and we don't see the problem. Back to your, COVID example, is like, yep, we're all focused on COVID, and rightly so. COVID was a big thing that we needed to have addressed, but there was other issues going on
Yes.
that affected us long after COVID that didn't have to affect us for so long, because we were so honed in and worried about, exactly, what was going on. Alan had a great comment though, and he said, oh, that's the point, sorry. He said, there's an illusion of power currently, but we have power in numbers to demand whatever. Look at certain groups who are organized and passionate, like the Alphabet Crew. No, that's a great
that's
example.
very true.
I mean, that group, you have, the Jewish community is very strong.
Oh, very.
Yes.
When we go
Yes.
play pickleball, like we play with a lot of Vietnamese people, and it doesn't matter. None of them are like related, but they all are like
Always
very,
together.
very, close with each other,
Yeah, that's
and
great.
like, hey, come over to eat, do this, do that, and we're cool with them and everything.
course.
But that sense of, community within their I guess, race is super strong, even though they're not like, directly related. And so I think that's a very powerful thing. And as the people of the United States, that's what we have to kind of get back to is like, yeah, we all have different groups and this is a melting pot, which makes our country so beautiful. But at the same time, if we want things to change, well, then we all need to kind of get on board and head in at least a similar direction so that we can actually put forth and elect people that will serve our interest, right? And not, just elect the biggest marketing people that only serve of the interests of, the plutocrats.
Right.
And the people in power. And so Tucker's dead right.
To add on to that, I would say maybe even more important would be, as Christians, I think we need to do a better job at being a community for each other also, because yeah, we can like do it as people, as Americans, but like as Christians, like there's a bigger fight, I guess, technically, bigger fight for souls. So if we all come together and we're all in one accord, because right now, even as a church, we're divided. And I know this is a little off topic, but I feel like it's important. So like, even as a church, we're divided. But if we all came together, one accord, for the glory of God, and yeah, just came together, things for the country as a whole would come together better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. Like we're supposed to be the light in the world. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth, and we're supposed to be the people that are evoking change
Yes.
and influencing, the way culture should be. And by and large, we aren't, right? We're, fighting amongst ourselves over silly theology or over, this and that. And some of it is important, but it's not as important as our duty to, go out and change the world and propagate the gospel.
Yes.
So no, that is absolutely, absolutely paramount. Let's finish what Tucker has to say.
I don't want to think that, but I don't know what other conclusion to reach. So what you have now is a legit mass movement on behalf of Donald Trump that's 100% real, and you have absolute ironclad resistance to the democratic process working its way to a legitimate conclusion by the people who have all the power. What happens next? I don't.
He doesn't know what happens next.
That's real.
Yeah.
Because
So
what happens next?
So now you're so divided that you have people who are like, no, we're getting behind this guy because he's going to be our champion, and other people are like, we hate that guy. He absolutely can't be our champion. We're going to present this guy, and then this side's like, no, we got our dog, and that dog, he literally can't even bark. He literally can't even bark. It's yeah. I'm not even sure if it's a chirp, but yeah. But you see how divided we get, and the bigger issue is like, no, they're neither one are good.
Yeah.
Like it's like, hey, we need to scrap it all. We're fighting over silly things. We need to, get back to things that are going to directly affect people's day-to-day lives and not necessarily like their identity politics.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the issue is the fact that we don't even know what our actual issues are.
The true issues.
The
right?
true issues,
Yeah,
exactly.
we're fighting over the issue. And a lot of the issues that we're fighting over have been presented to us. They're not things that we have come up on our own.
Like gender.
Yeah, a lot of the things that the left presents is like, these are kind of secondary things if you think about it.
They're not things that hold up the foundation of the country, things that we actually need in order to survive and move on. Yeah, exactly.
Make us strong.
Exactly. I mean, if you guys want to focus on that secondary, fine, but we're in a place right now where those aren't things that we should be focused on.
No, absolutely. Now, shout out to Miss Luann Chamberlain in the house. She makes a great point. She says we also forget that they are servants and not our leaders. So yeah, you're a public servant.
Yes.
You are here at the behest of us.
Yeah.
Right? But yet all y'all do is serve your own self-aggrandizement and your own self-interest to further, increase your wealth and not the wealth and health of the general
Constituents.
population. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, she also had another comment as well. She said, yes, keeping us divided is a tool of the devil. Yeah.
Amen.
Still
Absolutely.
Divided
kill,
we fall.
still kill, destroy.
Yes.
And in all three of those instances, you're taking something away. You're divide, like that's what division is, you're taking something away or you're separating it from, the unity of it all. And so now we're going to get into Jordan Peterson had a different take on this that might shock you and might actually, in a way bring Tucker's, whole point home and give a more positive perspective. So let's take a look at that now.
And I don't think that power is where people think it is. I don't think that power is in the hands of the elite. The ability to manipulate, misuse power might be in the hands of the elite, but the power that we need to set the world straight is actually at your fingertips.
Amen.
This is actually a rather terrifying realization, because there's some relief in thinking that the elites can do whatever they want, and there's nothing that someone as small as you could possibly do about it. And that's wrong because you're not small. And it's wrong because it's irresponsible to presume that. And it's wrong because the truth is more terrifying and also more liberating. And the truth of the matter is that if you utilized what you had at hand, which at least is the ability that you have at hand to say what you think truly and as clearly as you can, even if you're not that articulate, that the world would change around you in ways that would make you immune to the blandishments of the power-mongering elite.
Hold up.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, he just said a lot there. But one of the biggest things that I took away is that how many times in examples do we see of people just saying, well, they're just going to the elites are going to choose what they want, and we
Plenty of
really don't really
times.
have power, so I'm not going to go out. And people use that excuse to say, I'm not going to go out and vote.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Which, if you don't want to vote, that's fine, but that shouldn't be your excuse.
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
I don't matter. It's like, no, you do matter, right? So come up with a better, I guess, excuse for why you're not going to vote. And I think there's valid excuses for not going to vote, and a good strategy for not doing that if you choose to take that route. But you should always remember that, and this is something Jordan Peterson often says, is that you are more powerful than you think. You're always more powerful than you think. And I mean, think about like just the most powerful people in the world, like Oprah. Like, think about where she came from. Like, she wasn't really anybody. She built herself up. You can do the same thing, right? You have the power within you. And even if you don't become the next Oprah or the next billionaire, the next, somebody who we would deem as elite, right? You can do your part, and you can become a part of a community that evokes change,
Yes.
right? You can be a part of the community that becomes the elite voice, and that is more representative of what the people want. And that's what he's, getting at, is like, hey, you do your part and you speak the truth as articulately as you can. And then Miracle does that, and Kenya does that, and we come together, and now there's power in the numbers.
That
Like
made me
Alan
hype.
was saying.
Yeah, let's go.
Right?
Now there's power in the numbers. Like, Alan was saying earlier. Let me put that back up. He said, yeah, there's an illusion of power currently, but we have power in numbers to demand whatever. That is
Yep.
absolutely true.
It actually reminds me of this one scene in Bug's Life.
Okay.
Where
That's one of the greatest movies of all
It's
time.
amazing.
I would
very
do
much.
that. That's one of the greatest movies of all time.
And how they were ants, right?
Yes.
Okay, how the ants are basically being oppressed by the grasshoppers, right?
Right.
Hundreds of ants doing the work for these grasshoppers, while there's like 12 to 20 grasshoppers at a
Yeah.
time, really making these ants do what they want. There's a scene in there where the grasshoppers are talking amongst each other, and the ants, didn't meet their quota to give the grasshoppers their food, right?
Right, yeah.
And the grasshopper, minions are like, we'll make them do this or whatever. Like everything will be fine. And the leader of the grasshoppers, I forgot his name, but he's like, no, if they realize that they have the numbers over us, we're done for. Like it's over.
Right. Yeah.
Like, so I think that speaks a lot to the true nature of where power is. It is in numbers. It is in where your focus is. But they like to keep us divided so that way we don't have a focus.
Yeah. Well, because the interesting thing is enough people have said we've had enough. But they're all divided between, okay, I've had enough, but I'm going to support this side. I've had enough, but I'm going to only support this side. But the truth of the matter is, it's like, yeah, we've all had enough. If we just all came together and let's forget about, whose side we're on. Let's focus on, one or two things that can unite us, which that's the problem, because people are like, no, you either affirm everything or you affirm nothing. And that's not a leftist talking point. That's a right talking point as well. It's like, no, he's not a real Republican,
all or nothing.
Not a real conservative. You're not a real liberal if you do this. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, I thought we were all human here. I thought we were all, sharing this experience of life.
What happened to free thought of ideas?
Exactly.
The free exchange of ideas.
Exactly. And so, Jordan Peterson is honing in on something very beautiful. Let's continue to watch what he has to say.
And I'm hoping that enough people will realize the power of their affinity with the truth, especially when it's allied with the will to aim up, to have the courage to speak that truth. And if enough people do that, then the terrible things that we're concerned about coming forward at us in the future will have no purchase whatsoever.
That's very true.
Something that all this makes me think of how we do have the power at our fingertips is not just what we speak and like our actions. It's also going back to the economics of it all, like voting with our dollars.
Right.
That's a big thing. Like
it is.
For me personally, like I realize Starbucks, there's a lot of crazy stuff behind the scenes, and I had a lot of stock in Starbucks, and I was like, I can't support them. So it's like, even if something performs well, or even if you think this product is really good, if the company supports something that you don't agree with, you have to vote with your dollars also.
Yep.
No, that's super important, because people think voting stops and ends at the ballot. Yeah, at the ballot box. But it doesn't. It's through your day-to-day life, with the purchases that you choose to make, with even sometimes the schools you choose to enroll your kid in.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's a big one.
And the people that you support on not just the federal level, but a local level as well. And so it's super important that you're voting in your actions and everything that you do, right? And so that you're not just kind of just talking the talk. Oh, I checked the box.
Exactly.
I did my part. Like, no, that's akin to being, a lukewarm Christian. It's like, you're not really about it, are you?
No, you're not picking a side.
No, you just came to church on Sunday and Wednesday,
Just
and I
going
see
through the
you. I
motions.
haven't seen any change in you.
You still act the
Right.
same.
You still act the same, and I
Where
don't
are
know
your fruits?
I don't know your heart, but I see your fruits. Exactly. Yeah. And so, and that's what that's what it's going to take for people to change. Is like, it's got to be represented in your actions, or you haven't truly changed.
Yes.
Like, have you truly repented from this sin? If you just keep repeatedly falling back into that same sin, now it's iniquity. Is that not correct?
Oh God.
So yeah, and so that's a big thing that I think Kenya hit the nail on the head right there. Miss Chamberlain has another comment. She says, Christians also use the excuse that God is in control to do nothing. No, she's right on point. We forget the responsibility that God has given us, and financially, yes, being good stewards of what he has given us. Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of going through the book of Acts on my own, and one of the biggest things with Acts was like, you're supposed to bring all of your possessions to the community and to the church, right? And so that the poorest in the community are lifted up, but then the wealthiest in the community aren't just, boisterous, don't have the opportunity to, I guess,
Be excessive.
yeah, express like totalitarian rule. That's what I was looking for over, everybody else. And it's not to say that they don't work hard for their money, right? You still have to, come in and you still have to work and you still have to be a part of the community, but everything is divided because they're on one united front.
Yes.
Right. And so as Christians, we've lost that, right? Because a lot of people just say, I'm getting mine, God is in control, you go do your own thing. And that's like, no, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing anything, because the whole point of church is to be a community, to be this body of Christ, right? To move as God would move, be in the will of God, and to, again, spread the gospel and to be the light of the world, to be the salt of the earth. And if we're not doing that, which in America, I would say, is not happening in the way that it should be, or in the way that it really could be, right? Because we're too focused on too many different things, putting
Yeah.
on a show over here, this, theology isn't right over here, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, like we need to say, okay, base level, Jesus reigns. We're
Yeah.
following the example of Jesus. We're trying to become more like Jesus in our day to day. Almost every Christian agrees on that. And it's like, okay, Catholic brother, let's go. Let's make something happen, right?
Yep.
Evangelical
Orthodox.
brother, Orthodox
Yeah.
brother. Let's
Yep.
come together. Let's make something happen. And that's why I respect Ruslan a lot, because he brings people from all different sects of the faith, and he just has a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And he may challenge, this little tiff here, but he's always looking and aiming to understand. And he breaks bread with these people. He invites them into a studio, and they hang out and they have fun. And that's what we need to be doing.
Yes.
Because when you actually look into a lot of these different sects of, Christianity, you'll realize when it looks like they're doing something that's like silly to us, if you actually dig into the meaning of,
Yeah.
behind it, it's like, oh, okay,
makes sense.
that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not something that's truly necessary, but if that allows him and furthers his relationship with Christ,
Exactly.
then yes, that's good. Now, there is some stuff in practices that I'm like, nah, no.
Of course.
Yeah, no. But it's just to say that we shouldn't be so quick to to separate ourselves from other people, because a lot of times that's coming from a moralistic perspective, because we want to be like, oh no, they don't have it right, but my group has it right, and we're going to reign over us, which is exactly the problem that we're trying to solve, and exactly the antithesis of what, Jordan B. Peterson is saying. He's saying, no, like, yeah, speak your mind as articulately as possible, and let's come together, right? And then when we come together, okay, now we can make some change. All right, so that goes back to our quality sip as we conclude here. If you keep people divided, the plutocrats will continue to rule. So people, let's come together. Let's make it shake. And we'll be right back with some more quality content. Like with algorithm.